How good would it feel if the trivial things in life never even made it into your mind or into your environment? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the first of 5 layers of what I call the force field. The force field is the protective system that you build around your life so you're no longer under constant attack of the barrage of things in life that don't matter. It filters out the noise so you can stay locked in on what actually does. Just this one layer is enough to absolutely change your life. By the time this video is through, you're going to understand how to guard your mind through the lens of spiritual discernment, education, focus, and alignment so you can give your success freedom to grow. So let's build the first layer of the force field with guarding our mind. What's going to lead our discussion today is Romans 12:2 and 2 Corinthians 10:5. The first part of guarding your mind is discernment. Training our minds is just like training our bodies. The more we train them, the stronger they're going to be. Now, if I neglect my mind, the weaker it's going to be. There have been seasons in my life where I've been in the gym. I love getting in the gym, taking care of my body. In those peak seasons, I was very strong, very fit. And there's also seasons where I fall off of the gym. Maybe I prioritize something else, or maybe I'm just struggling with consistency in that season. So when I actually end up getting back into the gym, I recognize I'm nowhere near as strong as I was before. I don't have the endurance that I had once before. And if I try to do the things when I was at my peak, I'm much more prone to injury. But how does that tie into discernment? Because when I'm in the gym and I'm training and I'm watching professionals, how they do their movements, their form, all the things that go along with being in peak performance, I'm able to apply that to my life and then see other people in the gym that are not applying those same principles. Some people might be doing things a little differently that could make them prone to injury or make them prone to not grow their muscles as effectively as they could. When I stay sharp with my mind, I'm able to detect exactly what is right and exactly what is wrong. And the Holy Spirit is going to bring that discernment into our life. And that's where Romans 12:2 comes into play. In Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And that is exactly my point. Having the ability to discern the will of God, what is good and what is perfect and what is acceptable through the renewal of our mind, aka by training and staying sharp on a daily basis. And through that process, we're going to be able to see opportunities of growth, opportunities for prosperity, for discipline, and most importantly, for correction and submission unto the Lord. And on the other side of that, we're going to have supernatural vision to see, are the things that I am allowing into my life, or are the things around me bringing me closer to God or bringing me further away from God? The closer we get to God, the more our mind is guarded, because He's going to give us the Holy Spirit's discernment to lead us in paths of righteousness, lead us to the things that are going to be for our good. That doesn't mean that we're not going to go through hard things, but that means we're going to be able to see, yes, God is testing me through this season and I'm going to grow through it instead of simply go through it. And when there are things in our life that we recognize should not be there, we need to take action immediately to reject and rebuke them, cast them out of our lives, because sin has no place in our ability to guard our minds. Because if we don't reject them, it allows the spirit of Jezebel into our life. If you're not familiar with the spirit of Jezebel, I encourage you to go and read in the Old Testament, 1 Kings chapter 18, 19, and 21, and then in the New Testament, in Revelation chapter 2, verse 19, which talks about the Jezebel spirit that gets into places of authority and subverts the authority there by encouraging them to do things that are not of God, whether it's worshiping idols, sexual immorality, all the things that come along with not being able to guard our minds, but actually not renewing our minds, as it says in Romans 12:2, but allowing it to be distorted and poisoned so we come away from God instead of closer. And the last piece on discernment is be sober, because alcohol, getting high, in anything that you are ingesting that alters your mind, that is not guarding your mind, that is weakening your mind. Some people will say, well, it opens me up. I actually feel closer to God. No, that is a harmful spirit that is giving you a feeling of pleasure, making you think that you are getting closer to God, but yet is actually twisting and distorting your view of God. And I understand this because I went through this whole season of drunkenness and using substances, and I made up a new God in my mind. That the God that was okay with me using these things, the God that was okay with me doing all types of other things that were not righteous, that were not his will for my life. Now, I will say this, I drink from time to time, but never to get drunk. It's always to just enjoy being in a social environment, and it's only one or two drinks. However, if you have a proclivity to over enjoy in that department of alcohol, my recommendation to you is go a season without it. Because there was about a year of time in most recent past from my life where I went about a year without touching alcohol for any reason. And it was a great season of growth and sharpening of the discernment that I have with the Holy Spirit, and allowed me to rely on God for all things instead of going to the substance for any reason. The next layer to guarding your mind is arguably one of my favorite seasons of life, where I am introducing education and information. Now, I will say that when it comes to reading books, I went through a whole personal development journey, and there is no book, truth, or hack that is actually true that doesn't already exist in the Bible. However, because God is a creative being and made us in his image, we get to package and present his truths in our own personal flavor. And that has drastically changed my life. So at the start of this season, 6 years ago, prior to that, my financial literacy, my direction for life, my vision for a future, non-existent. I was living a life of honestly debauchery. And I had this life-changing moment where I was $20,000 in credit card debt and I wanted to make a change. I was tired of it. And so I went out and I bought a bunch of books because I had no idea of where to get started. And one of those books was a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this book changed my financial future forever, because it took me from having no financial literacy to skyrocketing my financial IQ to a new level. I took that information, applied it, worked out of the debt hole that I was in, and started investing in multifamily real estate. So now, 6 years later, my wife and I, we own 81 units across 17 buildings, and it has changed our financial future for generations to come. Now, why do I tell you that information? I tell you that information because it's dangerous when our own reason becomes unshakable and we don't have fertile soil in our mind to stay open to new concepts, ideas, and truths that when applied to our life will cast a positive vote towards a brighter future. And a verse to back that up is Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5, where it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes." This is a verse that encourages us to be truth seekers. This is not so we just follow blindly and go with the pack, but to be discerners of the truth and make sure that we are looking to God to constantly renew our minds, as it says in Romans 12:2. And for those who do not become truth seekers will fall victim to my third point, which is write your own story or somebody else is going to write it for you. I love the quote from Carl Jung, which says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it fate." What does that mean? Bring the things that are in the background, the things that are guiding our lives, that Jezebel spirit that are just hanging out on the side. things that are guiding our lives that might not be right here in the forefront, but they still have a material effect on our everyday living. Until we can bring those things to the forefront of our mind, label it, call it out, and kick it out, it's going to guide our lives. Another word for kicking those things out, bringing the unconscious conscious and doing something about it, is taking action. Action is the solve to any self-doubt. Action is the solve to anything that we might be feeling that is holding us back. Because if you're not taking action, God could be calling you. He could be calling you to ministry. He could be calling you to business. He could be calling you to missions. He could be calling you to any sort of thing, but he can't take you there if you're not moving your feet. God cannot bless steps untaken. My mentor, Coach Kirk, puts this in a beautiful sports analogy. You've probably watched football or rugby where you've seen a ball carrier running the ball in an open field where one of the opponents is pursuing them. And they get close enough and they leap out and they slap one of their ankles. And the person going forward flies forward. They had momentum carrying them and they just go flying because they get tripped up. Now, imagine that same scenario, but the person who gets their ankle slapped is sitting on the couch. They're not going to go anywhere. The person who comes up and slaps their ankle, they're going to look at him and be like, dude, what are you doing? Get away from me. That's because there's no momentum on the couch. But on the football field, on the sports field, or the field of life, when we have momentum moving us forward, even if we're running in the wrong direction, it just takes a little bit of correction to move us in the right direction. Because all God needs to do when we're running the ball in the open field is just tap ever so slightly on our shoulder. Go this way, son or daughter. No, go that way. And that's the Holy Spirit guiding us along the way. But we have to start with taking steps. It starts with action. But what holds people back, and it has since the dawn of time, is the fear of failure, the fear and doubts that creep in that tell you that you can't do it, you're not good enough, or you do not have what it takes. And that is exactly why we must guard our minds. We must renew our minds, strengthen and train our minds. Be mindful of what we are allowing in so that we can continue to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. Make sure that our mind is like a garden where we are constantly going and pulling out the weeds, manicuring the plants that we want to have there so that we stay sharp and continue taking steps towards the plan of success that God has for our lives. Which is a perfect segue into my final point of guarding your mind, which is don't allow your mind to go to places that you know are not good for it. And our focus verse for this point is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, which reads, "We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ." That means we have the authority to destroy arguments that come against the knowledge of God because we have trained our mind to focus on His will for us, what is good, what is acceptable, and what is perfect, as it says in Romans 12:2, the verse that we read earlier. And the most important part of this verse in the context of our conversation is that we hold every thought captive. When a thought comes into my mind that I ought not to have, I must first hold it accountable and submit it to Christ. And then the second part of that is finding out what instilled that seed in my mind in the first place, whether it's lust, whether it's jealousy or rage, or whatever that thing is that is going to make our mind weak and further away from God. We need to hold it captive, analyze it, study it, and if it has no place, reject it, find out its source, and pull out the roots. Our mind is like a garden. We have to go in and regularly, every single day, tend to the garden that is our mind. Should I be thinking about this? Should I be hearing this right now? And what are the implications? What are the seeds being sown? Whether that's whatever we're watching, listening to, the music, the people that are around us. Oftentimes we have complainers and negative Nancy's and people who will sow seeds of doubt into our lives because they don't want to see us take steps towards accessing the success and the prosperity, the growth and the challenges that God has waiting for us in our midst, as long as we walk on the path of righteousness and walk on the path of keeping our minds trained on Him, His perfect will, what is good, and what is acceptable. Now, my friends, if you take this concept of guarding your mind, I guarantee you your life will change. I say that very critically because in the business that I am in, where I am bringing in money from investors and investing in multifamily properties, guaranteeing somebody's investment back is never language that you want to use because it's an investment. There is a risk there. So I don't say that without precision. I guarantee your life will change. And even as quickly as overnight, when we take these concepts and we reject the things that are poisoning our minds, we reject the Jezebel spirit that is attempting to lead us astray, lead us to the wide path that everybody follows, that leads us straight to the pits, which is separation from God, separation from His goodness. And while here on earth, we want to be as useful and as effective as possible, living on mission and living in the call that God has over our life. And I know that God has a calling, a very specific calling over your life. So take this information, apply it through this week. And next week, I'm going to drop the second piece of forming the force field, the system that once applied will guard us from the trivial things in life. May God bless you and Godspeed.